We're reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 3, Chapter 2, entitled Remembrance of Lord Krishna. We're on text 4. Narayanam namaskritya naram chaiva narotamam devim sarasatim vyasam tatojayam udire. Before reciting the Srimad Bhagavatam, which is the very means of conquest, one should first offer respectful obeisances unto the personality of Godhead Narayan, to Narayan Rishi, the supermost human being, and to Mother Sarasvati, the goddess of learning, and to Srila Vyasadeva, the author. Nasta prayeshva bhadreshu nicham bhagavata seve bhagavat yutamashloke bhaktir bhavati naishtiki. Okay, so text 4, chapter 2 of Canto 3 of Srimad Bhagavatam. Sa muhurtam abut tushnim Krishna Angri Sudhaya Brisham Tivrena Bhakti Yogena Nimagna Sadhu Nirvritam Samuhurtam Abutushnim Krishnangri Sudhaya Brisham Ivrena Bhakti Yogena Nimagna Sadhu Nirvritam Samurtam Abutushnim Krishnangri Sudhaya Brisham Tivrena Bhakti Yogena Nimagna Sadhu Nirvritam Samuhurtam Abutushnim Krishnangri Sudhaya Brisham Tivrena Bhakti Yogena Nimagna Sadhu Nirvritam Samuhurtam Abutushnim
Krishnangri Sadaya Vrisham
Krishnangri Sudhaya Brisham
Tivrena Bhakti Yogena Nimagna Sadhu Nirvritam
Samuhurtam Abutushnim Krishnangri Sudhaya Brisham Tivrena Bhakti Yogena Nimagna Sadhu Nirvritam Samuhurtam Abutushnim
Krishnangri Sudhaya
Brisham Tivrena Bhakti Yogena Nimagna Sadhu Nirvritam
Samuhurtam Abutushnim Krishnagri Sudhaya Brisham Tivrena Bhakti Yogena Nimagna Sadhu Nirvritam
Okay, we'll go to the word for word meaning. Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 3, Chapter 2, Text 4. Sa Udava Muhurtam for a moment Abut
Abut
became,
became,
Tushnim
Tushni
dead silent.
dead silent,
Krishna angry,
Krishna angry,
the lotus feet of the
the
Lord,
lotus feet of the Lord,
Sudhaya
Sudaya
by the nectar,
by the nectar,
Brisham
Brisham
well matured,
well matured,
Tivrena
Tirena
by very strong,
by very strong,
Bhakti Yogena
Bhakti Yogena
devotional service,
devotional service,
Nimagna
Nimagna
absorbed in,
absorbed in,
Sadhu
Sadhu
good,
good,
Nirvrita
Nirvita
fully in love.
fully in love.
Translation. For a moment he remained dead silent and his body did not move. He became absorbed in the nectar of remembering the Lord's lotus feet in devotional ecstasy, and he appeared to be going increasingly deeper into that ecstasy. Purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. On the inquiry by Vidura about Krishna, Uddhava appeared to be awakened from slumber. He appeared to regret that he had forgotten the lotus feet of the Lord. Thus he again remembered the lotus feet of the Lord and remembered all his transcendental loving service unto him. And by so doing, he felt the same ecstasy that he used to feel in the presence of the Lord. Because the Lord is absolute, there is no difference between his remembrance and his personal presence. Thus, Uddhava remained completely silent for a moment, but then he appeared to be going deeper and deeper into ecstasy. Feelings of ecstasy are displayed by highly advanced devotees of the Lord. There are 8 kinds of transcendental changes in the body: tears, shivering of the body, perspiration, restlessness, throbbing, choking of the throat, etc. And all were manifested by Uddhava in the presence of Vidura. Om Gyanatimirandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshura Militanyena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Svayamrupa Kadamayam Dadati Svapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Utapadakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Saganaraganatam Vitam Tam Sachivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Saitan Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sagana Lalita Shri Vishakan Vitamscha Hey Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dina Bandhu Jagat Pate Gopisha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurange Radhe Vrindavaneshware Vishabhanu Sate Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Panchakalpa Tayubhyascha Kripa Sindhu Bhyevacha Patitanan Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadara Shri Vasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Rama Hare Hare Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prestaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Niti Namine Namaste Saraswati Deve Glavani Pacharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Desha Tarine. Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 3, Chapter 2, Text 4. Samuhurta Mabutushnim Krishnangri Sudhaya Brisham Tivrena Bhakti Yogena Nimagna Sadhu Nirvrita. For a moment he remained dead silent and his body did not move. He became absorbed in the nectar of remembering the Lord's lotus feet in devotional ecstasy, and he appeared to be going increasingly deeper into that ecstasy. Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna. So we're reading here about Uddhava's ecstasies. He's in, Vidura is making inquiries. Uddhava is remembering Krishna. So Prabhupada writes in the purport, 8 kinds of transcendental changes in the body: tears, shivering of the body, perspiration, restlessness, throbbing, choking of the throat, etc. All right, so Uddhava is a deep samadhi. So of course, this isn't like, we can think of samadhi as just this kind of monotone sort of experience, but this is samadhi that's filled with ecstasy and sadness and tears and imbued with ever blissful spiritual ras, his relationship with Krishna. And okay, so this is a very advanced, a very exalted, advanced, deep state of spiritual life, of Krishna consciousness. And we can say it's very esoteric. It's esoteric. It's not that though. Oh, so we shouldn't talk about this. Actually, so like Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita, Rajavijya Rajaguyam Pavitramidam Uttamam Prajakshavagaman Dhamyam Shushukam Kortamaviyam. Krishna says, well, this knowledge is the king of education, and this is confidential knowledge. And he says that it's the perfection of actual religion. It's the perfection of religion because it's directly experienced. It's not about what group do you belong to. It's not about it's not about are you with this or you with that. Are you a Hindu? Are you a Hare Krishna? Are you a Christian? Are you a Jew? It's directly experienced. And actually, if we read in other traditions too, if we read about like the truly realized Christian mystics. Yesterday, Malini mentioned about some Saint Teresa. I know I've read writings of the Saint Teresa of Avila, and she reads just like the Goswamis. So it describes ecstasies just like this. Ecstasies, joyful, often deep, dark night of the soul, deeply painful. And if we read other Saint John of the Cross, and I don't know it so well, but if we read in the truly realized mystics of the Muslim tradition, so it's similar, which can be kind of encouraging. This isn't a sectarian thing, that anyone who's genuinely progressing on the path of love of God, they experience real similar things, whatever the line, as long as it's a genuine line. So, right, we don't want to become like prematurely absorbed in like who's feeling these ecstasies. At the same time, even right here in Alachua, Florida, it's like about 8:15 a.m. But already, if we think about it, we've already absorbed ourselves in these sorts of profound devotional ecstasies. Right there at the beginning of the morning program, Prabhupada gives us Mahaprabhu Kirtanya Nichagita Paditramadyan Manasarasena Romanchakamba Shutaranga Bhajo Bandegura Shri Charanaravindam. So that's a song to the spiritual master is always singing and dancing and playing musical instruments, Vaditramadya, and he's experiencing trembling of the body and faltering voice and hair standing on end and tears, right? So that's just, so it's not like, oh, this is something you shouldn't. It's part prema Guru Prabhu led Shri Guru Charana Padma prema bhakti yahoite avijja vinasayate. Srila Prabhupada is from him ecstatic prema emanates. Okay, it's of course it's individual, but it's the same ecstasies that we're reading here about Uddhava. We read earlier. So this is a big part of Bhakti culture. We read earlier before Japa period. Nayanam glada shudarya vadanam gadgada udaya gira pulakir nichtam babukana tavanam gani babishiti. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is writing and he's praying, when will my eyes be flowing with tears like torrents of rain, and when will my hair stand on end, my voice feel choked up when I chant your name, Right? So this is then the next verse, Shikshastakam Yugaitam Nimeshena Chakshusha Prabhashaitam Shunyayatam Jagat Sarvam Govinda Virahinam Me. So these, because we think ecstasy means it's like joy, it's like happy, it means you got a happy face. We hear about, again, whether it's in our Gaudiya Vaishnava tradition or the Christian mystics, like since like these are like descriptions of like the deepest pain, okay, like feeling your separation, the world is completely vacant and one moment seems like 12 years or more. So then we need to understand that all of these painful feelings, they're imbued, they're founded on, they're in the container of ever blissful spiritual rasa. Mother Yashoda's anxiety that Krishna will be killed by the tornado demon, by Trinavarta, Gopi's feelings of separation, like that. So it's imbued with ever blissful spiritual rasa. So okay, so this is such a part, right? This is something we okay, so this is such a part of genuine bhakti culture, okay, and it's all over the place. Here in Bhagavatam, nectar of instruction, nectar of devotion, Chaitanya Charitamrita, even to some extent Bhagavad Gita talks about. Okay, these are the results, these are the experience, these are the experiential results of one who's genuinely practicing bhakti, one who's genuinely practicing bhakti. And so, yeah, so these are very tender, exalted states of consciousness of Uddhava in pure devotion to Krishna. We can see in the verse, Tivrena Bhakti Yogena. There's a verse earlier in Bhagavatam with the same line. Akama Sarvakamava Moksha Kama Udaradi Tivrena Bhakti Yogena Yajeta Pushakara. Describes wherever one's at, one's already in those ecstasies. One has material desires, one wants liberation, the best course of action. So Tivrena is by very strong, Tivrena, to engage in bhakti yoga with intensity. Okay. Right. So to hear about these joyful states of consciousness and devotional service that can, and they're meant to inspire us to practice the process. That said, we're not really encouraged like to make it like, I want those ecstasies. Oftentimes there's caution because it's just like, okay. So I figured out that in this, this bhakti community, so climbing the corporate ladder means like that you're advanced. Okay. And to be advanced, then you need to show these ecstasies. So I want to climb the corporate ladder. So if I just start showing these choking of the throat, throbbing, oh, Krishna, Krishna, and I got tears, I can, take an acting class and produce tears like that. Then like, I can get to the top of the corporate ladder pretty quick. Okay. So that's not recommended. That's called sahaja. Sahaja means like pretend, fake, like that. Prabhupada talks a lot about that. Prabhupada's predecessor, Srila Bhaktisthana, Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur. And in the line of Lord Chaitanya Six Goswamis, there's lots of sahaja going on, fake, like that. Right, and then like an actual advanced devotee is constantly experiencing these ecstasies, and for the most part, not absolutely, is concealing and hiding them. Okay, doesn't want to make a show of it like that. So our training, we're encouraged. Yeah, in one sense, even this like advancement, we hear a lot about it, but the idea is like not even to like so much focus on advancement, right? Because then that can get into it's like, I think she's this advanced. I think he's that advanced. I don't think he's over here like that. So a devotee more just like, I'm interested in the service, not so much. Sure, yeah, like it can be healthy to compare myself to myself yesterday or last month or last year. It's like, yeah, I want to be intensely engaged in devotional service more than yesterday. You know, like it can be like healthy competition sort of thing. But more it's just like, how can I serve? How can I serve? Prabhupada would sometimes say, work now, samadhi later. So that's definitely the mood. Work now, samadhi later. Okay. And that relates to in Malini's class yesterday, the idea of devotees not looking for a vacation. Okay. Weekend, all right, time off. Okay. No, but sometimes my devotee might like, okay, yeah, okay. I'm gonna go on a pilgrimage to Vrindavan or something. It's a vacation. And what am I gonna do on the vacation? I'm gonna intensify my hearing and chanting. Okay. So work now, samadhi later. You probably mostly are all familiar. As an example, like in the first center Prabhupada established on 2nd Avenue, the Lower East Side of Manhattan, New York City. And so he established the altar, showed the students how to bow down to the altar. So one student, after a day or a few, said to Prabhupada, was known as Swamiji at the time. He wasn't known as Prabhupada yet. And he said, it was Bhakti Greg, later became Garga Munidas. And he said, Prabhupada, Swamiji, sometimes I don't feel like bowing down. So Swamiji responded, first you bow down, then you feel. Okay. So that's classic example of work now, samadhi later. Because otherwise, if it's like, okay, so these ecstasies experienced by Uddhava, when I feel them, then I'll get up at 4 a.m. for Mangalarti. When I feel them, then I'll read Srimad Bhagavatam. Okay. That's backwards. That's backwards. Okay. So it's like, no, we discipline ourselves. We discipline ourselves. And we discipline ourselves just like, how can I serve? How can I serve? And a big part of the service. Okay, well, I'll put, there's nine varieties of service. I mean, there's infinite varieties, but 9 categories of service. And by practicing those 9 varieties of service, we naturally progress along the 9-step process of bhakti, the 9-step process of bhakti. All right. So the Goswami, and this is because we talked about the other traditions, Saint Teresa's writings or like that, and it's, you can see, this isn't fake. It just like, so a devotee, once I was reading, I think it was a lecture in Montreal in 1968 or 69, and after lectures, a guest asked Prabhupada something about Joan of Arc. What about Joan of Arc? And Prabhupada immediately responded, Joan of Arc, she is Bhagavatam, like that. So this is non-sectarian, right? This is non-sectarian. We're looking, what's the result? What's the result in the transformation of heart, right? So in this Vaishnava tradition, right, we're not looking to become God. And by practicing the process, we truly become godly. We become godly, like that. So, yeah. So, and then as far as based on what I've been exposed to in this 61 years, in this tradition, the process, the process and the nuances of the science to progress in this process of self-realization of a God, it's most subtly and expansively and with most detail defined. doesn't mean that because we've had the fortune to come in contact with the process, that we're more advanced or pure than, maybe others who come in touch with the process that's genuine, but not as defined. So Srila Rupa Goswami describes in Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu a 9-step process. Adal Shara Tata Sadhu Samito Bhajana Kriya. Tato Nartan Nivriti Shat Tato Nishta Ruchis Tata Tata Shaktis Tato Bhava Tata Prima Biranchate Sadakana Maya Premna Pradarbhave Bhavet Krama. The 9 steps, starting with some basic respect. Like, those who are practicing bhakti yoga, they're pretty cool. Okay, yeah, let me hang out with them. Let me come to a program. Let me read a book. Okay, they serve food. Okay, it shows some basic faith, some basic trust. That's the beginning of a process. And the process, it's not like a rigid linear thing, because we can see our trust, our respect, our faith. They're practicing a month, a year, 5 years, 40 years, like that. It's deepening, right? So it's not like we need to be 100% on one part of the process. And then, okay, now show up to Tas Sadhu. Yeah, let me associate with these people, right? Let me associate with these people who are reading about someone named Uddhava who's experiencing ecstasy. Yeah, this is where I want to give myself. Sangato Bhajana Kriya. Then Bhajana Kriya becomes like, actually, that was my thing, because I took a lot of prasad for years, started reading Prabhupada's books. Summer of 1983, backpacking around Europe, started chanting. And then, I couldn't deny, I'm starting to take this seriously. Yeah, so that's kind of, right. But I couldn't deny it. Yeah, I'm starting to take this seriously. Okay. And, all right. And then, because how can I then? Because, for a while because even in my early reading of Prabhupada's books, when I was just taking prasad those days in State College, I could tell. And that's the thing, like we, maybe, so these ecstasies, these seem far away. And again, they're far away, they're esoteric, but we're immersed in them. If we're following the program, we're immersed in them every day. They're all over Prabhupada's books. They're in the songs. They're in the morning program. So, but okay. So I like now, and even when I wasn't following any regulative principles, and I'm like that, I wasn't taking it here. I wasn't admitting taking it, but I could tell when I'm reading Prabhupada's books, like, there's a quality of experience here. There's a quality of happiness, whatever you want to call it, that's qualitatively different than anything I've ever experienced. And now I openly say it. I wouldn't have admitted it, back then. But that's what we're. So we can say, okay, well, I'm not experiencing what Uddhava is experiencing, what Lord Chaitanya is writing about, or like that. But I can say, and I've put it like this in some other classes over the months and years, that like I have enough experience. I do have enough experience to know that this process is true and valid. I have enough experience to know that this process gives a quality of inner experience that's unmatched and unparalleled. It doesn't compare to anything else I've experienced now. And I make the experiment every day. I make the experiment of going outside of the process. And whatever, and I make the experience of, like right now, okay, we're reading Bhagavatam and just
intentionally make the experiment.
Less than consciously.
Yeah.
Less than consciously. Yeah, that's a good point. That's it. So because that relates to the nishta, tato nishta ruchi. Nishta means steady, right? So then I less than consciously, I'm not steady, and then I'm outside the process, and because something in me still says you'll be really happy if you just leave that process. All right. Yeah. Okay. Great. So then, but then the results are always like, you know, either instantaneously or within 24 hours. The results are always like, why don't you just get more steady in the process? Why don't you like show a little intelligence as like, you know, the 4 millionth time you made the same mistake. Why don't you like just get a little more steady, a little more nishta. Right. So in the process, it produces a quality of happiness that's it's not just more, it's not like more or less, it's just like of a completely different quality. And like, even though like compared to, let's say, Uddhava, maybe I'm experiencing a drop of it, at the same time, I say with full conviction that, you say like, okay, so after like close to 40 years of practice, well, it's over 40 years since I've taken prasad, but about 39 years since I've started chanting japa. And so in 40 years, so you're experiencing maybe a drop of a drop. That's not very exciting, but it is, because even a drop of that drop, like if in the next 40 years, I don't know how long I'll be in this body, whatever, but like if in another few decades, you know, I progress another ½ inch on that path, that's trillions of times more worthwhile than traversing thousands of miles on any other path. I have no doubt about that. So it's described the process. Bhajana Kriya means, now I'm taking, now I'm committing, making a commitment. I might not be like that serious in my commitment, but at least I'm like, yeah, I really want to commit to this. Right. And then the more we commit, then the weeds get pulled, and the weeds, the dirt in the heart comes up. Okay. And then the more we're sincere, we stay, we don't get thrown out, because like, I thought this would be Disneyland. I thought this would be rainbows and unicorns. And it's not all rainbows, and it's not always a sunny day. And then, but we stay with discipline, with commitment. And then it gets, as Malini was talking about yesterday, and more like a quality of a devotee. We're talking here about ecstatic symptom, the quality of a devotee, avyarta kalatva. It means like a devotee doesn't want to waste a moment outside of Krishna consciousness, outside of devotional service. So then we can say, yeah, well, okay, yeah, I have that. Like, I really want to serve Prabhupada's movement. I want to cultivate, I want to serve Prabhupada's movement. That's true for me. More than it was 5 years ago, 10 years ago. Okay, then that's a bliss that nothing can stop. That's a bliss that time will never crush. And then we get more and more of a taste, and then the higher levels of Tashakti Stato Bhava Tata Prema Vidanshati. And so, right, and so that's like a 9-step process culminating in, like, you know, this steady experience that we're reading about here from Uddhava. And then there's 9 processes of devotional service described by Prahlad Maharaj in the 7th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam. Shravanam Kirtanam Vishnu, Smaranam Padasevanam, Archanam Vandanam Dasyam Sakyam Atma Nivedanam. Okay, so the foundational processes given to us or recommended for us are Shravanam Kirtanam, hearing and chanting. I think there's a Sankirtan party going out today. Hare Krishna. Tasmat Sankirtanam Vishnu Jagan Mangalam Amhasam Matam Apikoravya Vijayakantiki Niskrutam. That subscribe to Sankirtan. It's the most auspicious activity in the universe. Because it gets to the root of material desires. We can do other activities, other pious activities, mode of goodness stuff, but it doesn't get to the root of wanting to be the enjoyer and the controller. Okay. So hearing and chanting, we've spoken of, well, today I'd see Mother Malini has on her altar a picture of Lord Jesus. So today is Easter. Yeah, not to be flippant, but growing up, Easter, I just some friends do something with a bunny rabbit. I don't know what it means, but no, I understand. No, yeah. So, like even going, I could tell you what Christmas was about, something, but like Easter, I had no clue what it was about. Now I understand. It's like, okay, Good Friday, it's his disappearance day, and then Easter is okay. So then he's resurrected, and so yes, it's the Transfiguration. And it reminds me of some of my Middle East days. We had one place, Mount Tabor, and I think that's where there's this amazing church on the top of this mountain. It's not like a huge mountain like the Rocky Mountains or something like that, but it's either a big hill or a small mountain, Mount Tabor. And it's the place of Jesus's transfiguration. And I don't know too much about the history, but anyway, we did a lot of chanting Hare Krishna and distributing Prabhupada's book, Sankirtan, in those places where Jesus had all these pastimes, in Nazareth, Tabor, and Bethlehem, Jerusalem. We did a lot of Sankirtan there. Yes, and so and so Uddhava, he's deeper and deeper into that ecstasy, remembering Krishna and Krishna's pastimes. And again, Tivrena Bhakti Yogena. It's just like if we really want this, and again, in one sense, yeah, these descriptions are here to encourage us on the path. Same time, we're not really encouraged to I want some spectacular or something like that. We're encouraged to cultivate work now, Samadhi later. Work now, Samadhi later. Still, so there's nothing casual about Uddhava's devotional service. There's nothing I like to think of Krishna sometimes. Yeah, I do this and I do that. Now Krishna consciousness, that's pretty good. I like it. Yeah. It's one of those things. He's intense. He's focused. It's a clear intention in its ultimate, right? The soul, Uddhava, connected with Krishna, loving devotion that's moving to again ever blissful spiritual rasa that manifests as joy, as pain, as fear, as emptiness. And this is all on the spiritual platform. So my point here is there's nothing casual about it. If we casually chant some Hare Krishna, take some prasad, come to a program once in a while, that's good, that's great, that's glorious. If we want to substantially make advancement, Tivrena Bhakti Yogena, with very strong, with intensity. Yes. Okay, so yeah, I'm gonna feel this class it's going from I guess what I'm getting, going from these very esoteric spiritual states of consciousness and focusing on that just a very grounded, disciplined approach to spiritual life. I mean, we often, including in the Safatov seminars, will reference the Sri Upadeshamrita. It's a very short book. Just 11 verses, and it culminates in the description, very parallel to the description of Uddhava's states of consciousness here. It culminates in a description of the most sublime spiritual states of joy and ecstasy of the spirit soul, loving the supreme personality of Godhead, and very, very sublime ecstasies related to serving Srimati Radharani. It's described that Radha Kund is the most sacred place in the universe, and like that. So it really goes to esoteric places, as does this verse in the third canto Srimad Bhagavatam. That's one thing. Sometimes we'll hear, I hesitate to even say it, somebody, Prabhupada didn't give us everything. Just No, it's like the whole continuum, the whole gamut is there in Prabhupada's books. Here we are in the third canto. And then, so this Upadeshamrita, Srilupa Goswami, he starts in the most grounded place, Vachravega Mansa Krodavega. Jivavega Mudava Bhaktavega. Okay, so I want those ecstasies of Radha Kund and the joy and the bliss and the tears flowing. So where does it start? What are we doing with our words? How much, I want those ecstasies, but do it. But I want to talk gossip. No, it doesn't go together. I want those. What are we doing with our mind? What are we doing? What's our relationship with anger? It starts in those very grounded places. Yeah. No, I want to climb that corporate ladder and be really advanced. Okay. What's happening in that line? Tongue, belly, and genitals. What's happening there? Let's talk. Oh, oh, Krishna, Krishna. Yeah. Oh, Krishna, oh, Krishna. What's happening in your relationship with anger, with your mind, like that? What's happening with your relationship with, I could say mine, I could say our relationship with Vacha, with our word. Okay, what's the quality of our vibration? How much are we one with our promises? That's where Rupa Goswami starts. If we really want to progress here, Okay.
Can we start somewhere else?
Yeah. Is this can be like a multiple choice? Can we start somewhere else? Precisely. Yeah. And that's it. So that's, yeah, Prabhupada's giving us everything, representing the six Goswamis. This is most grounded process. And that process, yeah, it leads to these most sublime states of spiritual joy, which again, it's variegated spiritual joy. It's not like maybe a stereotypical, just an undifferentiated, monotonous conception of Samadhi, nirvana, like that. It is Samadhi. It's real nirvana. It's real Samadhi, and it's filled with it's filled with inconceivable diversity of emotional states. In fact, much richer and more expansive and nuanced than material emotion, which is quite dull by comparison. So I'll read this text again. This is text 4, chapter 2, canto 3 of Srimad Bhagavatam. Samohortam abhutushtim krishnandri sudhaya brisham tivrena bhakti yogena nimagna sadhunirvrita. For a moment, he remained dead silent, and his body did not move. He became absorbed in the nectar of remembering the Lord's lotus feet in devotional ecstasy, and he appeared to be going increasingly deeper into that ecstasy. Hare Krishna. Hey, thanks for your presence. Thanks for hearing Srimad Bhagavatam. I welcome questions and comments at this time. Garuda.
Hare Krishna, thank you, dear Govinda, for your class. For some reason, when you mentioned I guess this may be something that comes up where individuals are like, Srila Prabhupada didn't give us everything.
Yeah.
And for some reason that like hit me like big. It was just kind of like this big kind of feeling. And then I was thinking about like when Vyasadeva like compiled the Vedas, I was feeling really, distraught that something's not right, or there's something missing about what I did, or it's people are going to be bewildered by all this. There's so much here, and then him getting guidance to give the Srimad Bhagavatam and the essence of the Vedas. And I was thinking like, Srila Prabhupada like is giving us what we need, like everything we need.
Yeah.
And like there might be other writings and literatures and more depth of pastimes, but like what is the real like importance of like going into that when like Srila Prabhupada's giving us like a really like the potency that we really need. So I don't know, that's the first thing that kind of came up for me when I heard you say that, when I heard you mention that phrase that, you know, well, Srila Prabhupada didn't give us everything. I'm just kind of curious for like what, you know, I guess I'm fully trusting that Srila Prabhupada is giving me everything I need. I don't really feel like I need to look outside of, you know, what he has given. In the way that I'm feeling like, oh, there's something missing, I might have curiosity to like look into maybe even other religious paths, but not in the sense of like, well, there's
anything
something
incomplete, not in the sense that there's anything incomplete or missing.
Yeah, so it's kind of hard for me to relate to that experience. Just, I don't know, knowing Srila Prabhupada and how, I mean, like really researching like the process in which he even like created the books and the artwork. He was so like specific. He made artists redo paintings. He was just like very, very detailed oriented, and even like the written parts of the books. I mean, he was like, no, you know, somehow this got changed. You need he was very, very extensively like put a lot of time and energy making sure that it was like just perfect.
Yeah, he was scrupulously attentive to detail to give us what we need and what's going to support us.
Yeah, yeah. So that's for me. I trust him just hearing his process and you know, him bringing us these books and imagery as well. And yeah, I trust someone who's very meticulous and very, you know, very, very precise in his art of bringing this to us. So I wanted to share that. And then also I'm kind of I've been recently looking at my relationship with the four regulated principles.
Yes.
I'm not sure how this completely relates to today's class, but looking at like you know, gambling, because it's been, and I know it came up in a past class where maybe you specifically were bringing up the just this idea that, you know, we could be gambling with our time if we're not really utilizing the time that we have to, you know, to rigorously be giving ourselves to this to this process. Because I feel like that's an area that I've been neglecting, like looking at like my relationship with gambling and in that context specifically. And I'm like feeling like there's a like an energy of like, you know, of like inertia, or like the like there's a fire that's like I feel like I have like a dim little like candle light inside me regarding like my urgency. And I'm like, how do I like turn that into a blazing like inferno, to where I'm like, I'm waking up and feeling like I'm going to utilize every moment of my day in my life to give myself 100% to this process, and to live in fullness of my being as a spirit soul, and all the qualities of my spirit, like really embodying those qualities, and like just living from that context. Because I feel, like I said, I feel like the like I know that I have like so much more potential for my life, for my what I'm doing with myself, or just in so many areas of my life. I feel like there's so much like higher level that I could be operating. And I feel like there's, like I said, there's like this, it just feels like a little candle lit, and it's like that's my like energy source to like give myself to each day, instead of like a blazing inferno. So I'm wondering like if you could share a little bit about like, how does one like, you know, get that like that fire, like, and maintain that fire. I guess that's kind of where I'm at. Like, what is your kind of insight on like someone in my position and where I'm at?
Thanks for sharing. Thanks for sharing, Garuda Prabhu. Thank you. And yeah, just to clarify when I was saying yes, okay, I will mention that Rukmini has written on chat, such inspiring, eloquent sharing, Garuda Prabhu. Thanks for sharing. Agreed. Yes, so but when I mentioned Prabhupada didn't give us everything, I was just role playing. Just in case I make sure everyone is, I was just role playing. Some people say that, so it just it's ignorance. Clearly, Prabhupada gave everything, and we might like I mentioned here, like I'm reading some of the books of the Christian mystics, or I might read so many things, and understanding it, processing it within the container of what Prabhupada gave. Prabhupada is our current link to the Parampara, seeing and process everything through the pure lenses Prabhupada gave. Yeah, like, yeah. So I encourage everyone to read all of Prabhupada's books at least 3 times, hear his lectures, and see what's one's impressions about what Prabhupada gave. So he gave us a complete path. And sure, we can supplement that by looking here and there, being conscious to receive and process everything through our current link to the Parampara Srila Prabhupada. So I'm as Rukmini read, I'm inspired by your sharing, and I'm hearing in you. I'm hearing you have a burning desire to have that burning desire. You got a little flame, and you have a burning desire to have it, like that flame. Let it become this. Let it become this inferno. And so we mentioned it. That's a quality of a devotee, of Yarta Kalatvam, like urgency and intensity. I don't want to waste a moment outside of serving Krishna. I don't want to waste a moment outside of Srila Prabhupada, outside of serving Prabhupada's mission, outside of cultivating Krishna consciousness and sharing it, and serving the mission of my spiritual master. So you're aspiring for that. I mean, so I'm certain Srila Prabhupada and Sri Krishna, Srimati Radharani, Lord Chaitanya, they're noticing your sincerity to want that, and that itself is so purifying. And otherwise, as far as a how-to, in sense, my response to how-to is everything, meaning nothing different than what we've shared. That I can speak for myself, that my little spark flame becomes more and more towards the inferno each day, to the extent that I rigorously follow the path Prabhupada gave, and anukuliyasya sankalpa pradikuyasya varjanam, and accept those things that are favorable to Krishna consciousness, stay away from those things that aren't favorable. Then I feel more and more that joyful urgency, to get up each morning and use every moment in service to Krishna. And to the extent that I'm exposing myself, whether it's to vibrations or forms or activities or too much sleep that aren't conducive, too much eating, too much sleep, and to the extent that I'm not rigorously in the program, then it's like taking a hose and pouring water on the flame. And so just, how to is everything, starting with morning program, japa, being more attentive, being disciplined to clear time, hear Prabhupada's lectures, read Prabhupada's books. And so the more we do the process, then the more the flame expands. Malini?
Thank you for your question. I really appreciate it. And, yeah, I want to share similar to Dhira Govinda that the entire process is about developing the desire to serve Krishna 24 hours a day. with love and ecstasy and for the pleasure of Krishna. So everything we read, everything we hear, all our chanting, they are serving that very desire. So everything is based on desire. So you have that desire. That's wonderful. And most of the world doesn't have the desire. There are so many other desires. And so like cherishing that desire and appreciating it and protecting that desire and purifying that desire too. Because like having the desire, if our desire is pure, of like serving 24 hours a day, and it's happening, like on a spiritual transcendental platform, our desire are not different than what's happening. So cherishing the desire, appreciating the desire, being really like protective of that desire and purifying the desire all at the same time, seeing like, is there jnana in it? Is there karma in it? Is there desire for I and mine in some ways, or mystic power, or whatever, like purifying the desire. And then what else I wanted to say? Like, Lord Chaitanya, you respond to that question, he said to chant all the time, which is to remember the Lord all the time, to serve the Lord all the time, said Trinadapi Sunichena. It gives us the formula. The formula is to feel more angry than the straw in the street, be more tolerant than the tree, be void of all sense of all spreadsheets, and be ready to offer all respect to others. And so in such a state of mind, one can chant the holy name of the Lord constantly. So chanting the holy name of the Lord means serving constantly. So Lord Chaitanya directly responds to that question and tells us how to do.
Yeah, I was after hearing from both of you, I was like kind of holding in on like, okay, so desire is a natural like quality that we have, and we can direct our desire to serve Krishna or serve our senses. I guess what I'm seeing more where what's happening for me is like the desire is like, it's like even desire for material things has been kind of in my life. I guess the desire in general in my life has been kind of numb, like the feeling the desire or feel it. So yeah, I guess to be more concretely, like how to get in touch with like desire in general, I think is, I mean, from the outside, world, people might think, oh, he looks like he's got drive and desire, and he's got a family, he's got a great job, it's like he's artistic, he's like, but I don't necessarily feel that way.
It's not feeling alive in you.
Yeah, so I mean, desire even for material things has been kind of, I mean, I haven't been like, I want this big thing and I want all this money in the bank, and I've never really, like, I feel like as a whole in my life, it's like I haven't really been in touch with that like desire and if it has, it's been very subdued. So yeah, so I guess that's what I don't know, just like trying to gain some clarity on like where I'm at and what I need to focus on right now in my life. And I've recently made contact with a men's organization, and they're very like rajastic, getting the fire back. They're like whole kind of thing they promote is like, okay, yeah, you've gotten complacent in your life and you don't have desire. Well, we help men get that desire back, get that fire back. And so I guess that's kind of, I mean, somehow Damayanti got me in contact with this particular organization because she knows me. She knows like, kind of where I'm at and what's happening for me. So, and I do like, I feel inspired to hear from Srila Prabhupada every day, you know, his lectures. I love chanting. It's been a little bit old times. I haven't been as steady in the morning the last month or two, but you know, I feel connected with this practice through like real tangible like experiences I can't deny that I had regarding like the process. So I feel like a natural like desire to keep going. I love my children, I love my wife, I love my, you know, I'm going to continue to go to work. It's not like I feel like I just am going to just sink into a hole, but you know, at the same time, I feel like there's so much more energy that I know that I have access to, that I'm really like feeling like I've lived 45 years of just kind of being in you know, mode, and I'm like I'm like really feeling like, do I really want to live another 20, 30 years that way? You know, just to where I'm like, I'm moving forward, it's happening, but it's just this slow, drawn out. It feels like slow and drawn out. And that's been and I'm feeling like, how do I just like, you know, just really like, how do I get in contact with that? Like, because if our natural, if we have this natural desire, then I bet it's like really like, it's a lot. It's like really intense. And it's like, I have the desire to serve Krishna night and day. Like that to me, like if we do have that is our natural state. So it's like getting back to that, like that place of like, I don't know. So
Yeah,
anyway.
well, actually, like to the extent we're covered by the modes, the actual, and like when you were sharing that, Govinda, I saw you come alive. I saw you shining brightly when you were saying, yeah. So to the extent we're covered by the modes, then that actual fire of the soul is covered, and then okay, and then especially once we get some transcendental knowledge, to get really, you know, full flame on, you know, on fire about any sort of material goal. It doesn't mean not to go for it in the world. Like, okay, I'll share like myself. Okay, and then when I was like growing up in school, really practically at any grade level, and certainly into high school and things like that. And the teachers, even from the time I'm 6 years old, they would sound like David, like he has more potential. He's an underachiever, you know, like maybe get B plus, few A's, like that, underachiever. Like, you know, he could do more. And I was like, okay, yeah. Right, but then, okay, then I went back to school for my graduate degrees in the 90s, in the 90s, and then, you know, got my master's degree and PhD, and then I was really inspired because then I was, well, at least to a large extent, I was doing it for Prabhupada's mission. I was doing it for Prabhupada's mission, and then I was like the valedictorian, and I got like these full scholarship and like that. Then I was really inspired to get the top grades, because then I was doing it as an aspiring devotee of Krishna, and not just like, oh look, the devotee of Krishna could be top in the class, but like it became, you know, the Mahamantra studies, the Vedic prayer. Then I really wanted to excel, and until then, like the teachers would say, from the time I'm 6 years old, yeah, I mean David's doing good, but you know he has a lot more potential, and I was like, okay, yeah, I should really be top in the, like, you know, I'll get by like that. So I'm saying like, but then when I connected with like, so it doesn't mean once I connect with devotional service, who cares about school? For some people that might be the path, but for me, like then I decided like, no, I'm going back to get more degrees. But I'm doing this for Prabhupada's mission. I'm doing this for Lord Chaitanya Secretary Movement mission, and then I connected with the desire of the soul. So I just wanted to share that personal experience there.
Yeah, I appreciate you sharing that. I can connect to that. Like, you know, I'm just seeing, well, this is my process. Like when I put myself in this context of Krishna consciousness and my service to utilize my life in that context, like I'm really seeing clearly, like it's that I have this opportunity to really utilize my life and it's giving me more like desire to like, you know, change what I've been doing, the way I've been operating, so that I can serve at a higher level of service, and not just like, you know, being material. Because I feel like yeah, that's it for me. Like just being in material consciousness, it just doesn't really do much for me. So yeah, it's just, I guess, my process where I'm at. Yeah.
Yeah, especially with some transcendental knowledge, then a goal, a material goal separated from anything connected with story, it's going to be blah.
Yeah.
It's going to be blah.
Yeah, unless I'm completely entangled in material consciousness, then it might be, yeah, I'm gonna have, you know, lots of money and a beautiful wife and a nice car. Yeah, thank you, Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Guru.
I was just thinking that this kind of drive that people are looking for in this kind of seminar, I imagine it's really awakening and kindling Raja.
Yeah.
Because Sattva feels different than the fire and the drive. Sattva is subtle. Sattva is like intimate, like small, like sensitive, subtle.
Yeah.
And it's not going to manifest in that way. However, like we are under the mode of material nature. So we want to purify them and we want to devote them in the service of Krishna. So to use, if it's present, to use in the service of Krishna, that's wonderful.
Yeah.
But to try to like force it may not be really what the process for each person is. It's very individualized according to what constellation or aggregation of the mode of material nature we are born under.
Yeah.
And we are this body. So each of us, we have a different journey.
Yeah.
To go towards Krishna and pure bhakti.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm hearing that even Rajas, you could use Rajas to serve Krishna, and some people might really need that at some point in their process. And I feel like that's kind of what's happening for me. Like, so to get in really kind of get in that, you know, kind of way of being, you know, so that I can, you know, really develop and serve Krishna ultimately. Yeah. Because before I thought, well, okay, you know, well, Thomas, I don't know, I'm not sure how I could serve Krishna in the mode of Thomas, but passion and being in sattvic mode, you know, those two seems like they could be really helpful, you know, to be in those modes.
From Tamas to Raja is a great progress.
Yeah. Yeah.
I see we have some hands up here.
Yeah.
Anasuya.
Hi, Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Thank you for class. Thank you, Garuda, for sharing so vulnerably. What's coming up for me is like from the Bible, be still and know me. And so it's coming to me, Garuda, is that you have this passion, you have this fire. And I also feel like maybe it's like being silent, like we're reading in this passage, like being that dead silence, like to really listen to Krishna and Super Soul and to be guided through that. So I don't know if that's helpful or not. That's just what was happening for me, is that there's something in just being still and just really listening and seeing what your heart tells you is your mission for Prabhupada. So I just wanted to share that with you this morning, if that's helpful.
Thank you. Hare Krishna.
Thanks for sharing that, Anasuya. I'm directly reminded of this verse, and the verse reads, "For a moment, Buddha remained dead silent." Just reminded of that there, and that's it. And thanks for sharing that, Anasuya. And yeah, it reminds like what you were expressing, Malini. Like the sattva, it's like a subtle place, and yeah, it's one thing we can get enlivened in rajas like that. But sattva, it's like really being connected with that quiet place within. And then the Shuddha Sattva or Vishuddha Sattva, that's an even more subtle place. And that requires that we're really connected with, living from that quiet place within, where there's no material noise. Of course, a devotee like Buddha, it doesn't, like someone could be in the middle of a big city and be in that quiet place. But to get that sattvic inspiration, just what Anasuya is sharing, that's
The stillness. I like
stillness.
Stillness. Yeah, makes sense. I like that word, stillness.
I'm just reminded of yeah, I was talking about silence or stillness, the conversation between Srila Prabhupada and Yogi Amrita Sai, when Yogi Amrita Sai was talking about his guru, Kripalananda, took like a vow of silence or Mona for like I think 7 or 11 or something intense. And Prabhupada immediately was like, oh, and chanting the names of God. And yeah, that reminded that silence, stillness is chanting the names of God. And the Bhagavatam is the names of God, the writing of Srila Prabhupada, the representation, incarnation of God. So yeah, that's just what's coming up for me.
Thanks for sharing that, Bhakti Nika. Yeah, thanks for sharing that. Yeah, I know me connecting, moving towards connecting with that quiet, that stillness place within. So just like I'm experiencing that more and more, to the extent that I'm clearing time to read Bhagavatam each day, chant rounds each day, rise for morning programs, discussions like that. Then that stillness place within, which is the foundation of all these ecstasies being talked about, the stillness place within, then that's more and more that becomes a stage of consciousness, a way of being, and not just like, let me take some time out for that, but it becomes a way of being. And it's material silence. Material silence, it might also be externally silent, but material silence might be chanting Hare Krishna loudly, but it's material silence. We're not agitated by so many talks and vibrations, Shrotavyadani Rajunjanunam Shanti Sashra, by thousands of topics. Stillness.
Did you say material silence?
Material silence, yes. Material silence, right, which means we're not speaking nonsense.
Why material?
Well, I'm saying, like, if we're chanting Hare Krishna and we're absorbed in chanting Hare Krishna, we're absorbed in discussing Bhagavatam, that's material silence.
Okay. I accept. Linguistically, does it make sense?
Logistically?
Linguistically.
Material silence means we're not making any material vibration. Any other comments or questions or inspirations?
I have a question that I prefer you don't on the computer.
Okay.
I will speak loud.
Okay, Malini. Yeah.
It seems from what I read in the Nectar of Devotion, what we read in the Chaitanya Charitamrita, what we are described here with Uddhava, that the symptom of ecstasy are things that are not comfortable for the body.
Okay.
You know, trembling. Well, most people would think sick.
Yes.
And that's what's happened with centers of Avila.
Yeah.
She had a lot of ecstatic symptoms, but they were looked at from the medical perspective because on a physical platform, they don't seem like hair standing on hand, the trembling of the body, the perspiration, Lord Chaitanya, like his limbs getting out and his joints being completely dislocated.
It seemed quite gruesome.
It's exactly like I always wondered about that. The way I interpret it is like the spiritual energy is so much bigger than the material energy that it cannot be contained within a material container, and so it's expanding. And now, and at the same time, it seems quite very uncomfortable.
Very
on the
uncomfortable.
material platform. If there is anything Srila Prabhupada says about that.
Well, No, I appreciate that. The spiritual energy is it's much greater than the material energy. It can't be contained in a material body. So of course, like with Srila Prabhupada, mostly he contained, the ecstatic symptoms. And then, yeah, so physically uncomfortable and also mentally, emotionally. That's why, like those who are like fully exhibiting, those genuine devotees of God who are fully exhibiting the symptoms, it looks a lot like material madness, craziness, psychosis. Okay. There's writings of Anton Boysen. He's in the Christian tradition, and he actually had bouts with mental health, psychosis, institutions, and he wrote about the connection between these like mystic states of God, love of God consciousness, and material psychosis or schizophrenia, that sort of thing. So that's why it's like, okay, so if someone's really showing the symptoms, I don't want to be cynical. It's like, he's just crazy, she's just crazy, or they're just faking. I don't want to be cynical because the actual thing can look like, like a diagnosis. On the other hand, it's not just like, oh yeah, so if someone's like really having the psychosis, they're really so spiritual and you're just not seeing it. 99.999% of cases, probably not. Probably they're just running away from their anger and they're just running away from life and they have a madness grungy going on. But, so whether it's physically uncomfortable, mentally, emotionally, intellectually uncomfortable, yeah.
It seems.
It seems, right.
Then it cannot be felt from that perspective.
Yeah. We have a chat here. Rukmini wrote, in a sense, these symptoms interfere with service. She gives the example of Daruka, unless contained. Thanks for that, Rukmini. Right? There's was it Daruka? Okay. So he was actually the chariot driver of Krishna, but at one point he's fanning Krishna and he has the symptoms of Ashu, of the tears. But then the tears are getting in the way of him fanning nicely. So he's cursing the tears. He's cursing the ecstatic, Hare Krishna Bhakti. He's cursing the tears because they are interfering. So. Yeah, so that, thanks for that, Rukmini. Yeah, so that relates to a devotee is not intrinsically interested in the ecstatic symptoms. The devotee is interested in the service. The example of Daruka fanning Krishna is just like, these ecstatic symptoms are getting in the way of what I really want, is to serve. Thanks for that.
Because the devotee is not seeking them.
Yeah.
And when they come, he probably wants to prevent them as much as possible.
Generally.
It seems it's Srila Prabhupada's pastime is so much what the devotee kind of observe, that maybe, Prabhupada couldn't help it sometime, but as soon as possible, he was covering them up. Most of the time, probably not manifesting them.
Most of the time, yeah. Sometimes, sometimes they couldn't help it and they got away and they manifested. But mostly, yeah, he concealed them. Thank you all. Srimad Bhagavatam ki
Jai.
Srila Prabhupada ki jai.
Jai.
Hare Krishna.